According to Chicago Tribune journalist Elizabeth Grivey, it wasn't clear at first what had caused the crash. The Lake Dan Ryan train had turned the corner to pull into the station at State and Lake. The train hit something after coming around the curve at the corner of Lake Street and Wabash Avenue. After a quiet thump, the first two train cars started to wobble. Slowly, the back of the first car lifted into the air and then crashed into the street 20 feet below, dragging 3 other cars with it. More than 160 were injured, and 11 people were killed. An L train would fall from the elevated downtown Chicago Loop train track, and just like that, a quiet thump, as Grivey described it, my mother's possible injury and death, there were 11 others not so lucky, by an infrastructure, a necessary institutional structure needed for travel, employment, and income, a gap, a same L train moving in a different direction, were seemingly and arbitrarily avoided or narrowly escaped. I couldn't tell you then, and I can't tell you now, if there were any signs on Chicago train platforms during my childhood alerting me of the dangers of the gaps. I couldn't tell you if my mother was aware of her danger or the significance of her danger, as my memory recalls her own reactions and retelling of her experience, her story. It seems that by the time my memories had caught up to me in the 1990s on that London train platform, I had accepted those very real and metaphorical gaps of danger as a normal part of my life, and the cost of being able to travel, of being able to move in this, my life. So much so that I couldn't recognize the dangers enough to even be fearful, or even recognize them as such. It was only as I worked to write these words with the intent to both introduce and house this collection of recursive essays, written over my experiences and memories of more than 2 decades, that I can remember the dangers of public transportation, the dangers of life as a Black woman in the United States of America, and the L trains from my childhood. I had normalized the gaps and dangers of my constructed identity of my lived experiences in order to exist, to survive, and to make sense of the world in the past and present moments. Standing on that London platform in the 1990s was a memory recall obscured with active escape and survival. How do the legacies of institutional and structural racism create quiet but huge gaps in our lives and lived experiences that we, as oppressed identities and bodies, working daily to thrive and sometimes just to survive, get caught up into or narrowly miss every day? How, as an act of survival, mercy, and resilience, do we pull through our encounters with these gaps and live to arrive in safe, creative, and critical mental and physical spaces where we can use memory and self-reflection to recall and construct meaning and deconstruct white supremacy? Today, it's a greater memory, still not complete or perfect, but a fuller picture that works to include my escapes, catastrophes, and the narrow navigations of the dangers along the way, with compassion, empathy, humor, and humanity. When I decided to complete my college degree in the 1990s, I started at a community college in Des Moines, Iowa, after having dropped out for more than 4 years. My cool composition teacher drove a red Pontiac Fiero, and she shared with the class that she had just recently been diagnosed with a condition that required that she walk with a cane. I was apprehensive about taking a college writing class because I had big-time failed my freshman composition class as a new incoming university student. That big, juicy F in my composition course was the significant event that triggered the domino effect that eventually led me to dropping out of school altogether.